The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back to the show, and it's what a great 3 days this has been. We didn't know we were going to end up stretching this into 3 days, but we did, and so here we are, and so let's continue with the conversation. We were talking yesterday, the way the system was created and the way it was by the Founding Fathers and the way it's evolved, the way it was created and the way it's evolved, it's gone to a point where it was created for that respect. You know, it was created so that the president could be the manager or the CEO of the country.
Right.
And so we gave that position respect. Just like if you worked at a company, you know, and the big boss is a total idiot, you're not going to go up and say, you're an idiot, you're going to lose your job, and you're going to be ostracized. And you have to respect that position. Plus, if you care about the company, you're not going to go around and tell everybody how bad that person is.
Right.
And that's really one of the things that always came along with it. But now it's to this point where they don't care about that anymore. They really don't care. There's the respect for that position has been completely lost. And now I think when we look at it that way, I'm not saying we're living in fantasy land, but it's almost impossible to sit back now and allow these things to happen, because we're going to react. See, this is what always happens. People who are constitutionalists, we react with respect.
Right.
I don't care what the media says. We react with respect. The left reacts with violence, and they react with disrespect.
And that's always been the case.
Always been the case. So, and because they always want revolution, where revolution is not, I think we need revolution, where we go back to what the Founding Fathers wanted.
Right.
So, but let's get back on this real quick, on this one focus, and then we'll wrap this up, is people have been taught helplessness. People have been taught that whoever you watch on television or whoever you hear on the radio is an expert, right? And they're not most of the time.
Correct.
Most of the people who have hosted these presidential debates didn't even graduate college. Lester Holt, for instance, Chris Wallace didn't graduate college. So these are weirdo people who get into these positions in media, and people believe because they're hosting a show that they just must know.
Right.
But what advice, how can you tell the people is there a way to tell when you've been hoodwinked and what you're feeling versus what the truth is? That discernment, that feeling. Because I know, when we're Frogman or doing the things that we've done throughout our lives, when I look at something, I have a critical thinking step process that I go through, whether it's intentionally or subconsciously, but I look at things to try to determine the totality of the circumstances and where the truth lies. Most people do not do that. They just go on what they're told. Exactly. What is the discernment process?
And when you were saying that, I was thinking exactly what you were saying. When I don't know something, when I don't understand something, and if someone says, well, this is what Trump did, or this is what Biden did, I don't blindly believe them. I don't believe the memes that pop up on my Facebook or the rhetoric that's on the news. I go investigate it, and I just don't go investigate it from popular sites. Like, one of the coolest hints that someone gave me a long time ago is, if you want to find out what's going on in America, read outside sources, read the BBC, read something from the Middle East, read something from Egypt, read these unbiased opinions, right. and because they don't care, they're just going to tell it the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them do, some of them don't. But the thing is, if you get down to the roots of it, and you can see where the narrative is. You can see where the narrative is and where the facts are. So there's narrative and there's spin and there's fact. Okay, so when they're hounding on something like, oh, this person only paid so many dollars in taxes, okay, so you got to know that that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But then some people take that as a truth, they make it a truth, and they argue about it. Well, he only did this. Okay, well, so how do you know? Well, he won't release his tax returns. Well, he doesn't have to. I wouldn't release my tax returns.
Right.
Right. So like what part of the Constitution says, or being the president says, you have to release your tax returns? And what does somebody pay in taxes? And if he did tax fraud, we have a whole agency that would have already indicted him for tax fraud, but there's no indictment. So like if I get audited, right? And they were like, oh, yep, just a mistake. Yep, here you go. And this is what I had to do. And I was fine. You know, there was nothing to it. They look into it, right? They look into it. So if there was anything that was founded in any of these allegations, right, then there would be something that would become of it, right? So there are some factual things out there that are facts, and some people aren't being held accountable for those facts. There are some things that is bullshit, and people are being held accountable for bullshit. Right. And it's on both sides. I'm not gonna point fingers at Republicans. I'm not gonna point fingers at Democrats. I consider myself a centrist, a realist, a rationalist, and I don't really identify with either. I think our two-party system is broken and should be.
I say that all the time.
It should be abolished. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
But in order for that to happen, the people have to be willing to take part. Right. And participate.
I should be able to run for president of the United States without having $1 billion.
Right.
I shouldn't need to be a billionaire or have a billionaire in my back pocket.
Or have one of the parties approve you as their candidate, which is all these primaries and caucuses, they're total crap, because the reality is they're just putting a candidate out there. It's a polling. That's exactly what a caucus is. It's just a polling. But usually what happens is whoever they want, I wouldn't even say it's a polling. What it is they put people out there, and the caucus or the primary is a promotion. They're promoting their product.
Right.
That's all that is, because the Republicans will put their money behind one person, push them forward, or the Democrat Party will, and then they ostracize the other people during these primaries and caucuses.
Right. Right.
And it shouldn't be that way.
And the person that gets in is the person that aligns with the values and beliefs of what the people in charge or people in power are telling them to, or they want to. So if you want to go somewhere, you have to go, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. I'll do it. Right. So like, if you couldn't do that, like, how does someone stay in office for 47 years and do nothing? You know, how does Nancy Pelosi or Biden or
even on the Republican side, John
McCain, right? Like, why? Like, no.
Yeah, like because people don't participate.
We need to have fresh people. We need term limits. Term limits. Well, of course they want to get rid of them. They don't want to lose their gravy train. Right. I guess if I had been there for 25 years and I was getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars and whatever because of all this stuff with free health care and Secret Service the rest of my life, I wouldn't want to give it up either. Damn it. Right. But you know,
especially if you're making billions of dollars off of your relationships with using imagine in the teams, if you would have used your official position for personal gain, you'd go to jail. You'd go to jail.
And some guys did, and they went to jail.
Yeah.
Right. Some guys did, and they went to jail. They were indicted. They were held accountable. Right. And they did. There was a lot of scandals in all the forces when people used their power and position to take what they wanted.
Yeah,
unlawfully, and they were held accountable.
But yet, for politics, it just doesn't. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way, because if you have $1 billion, and you have certain people behind you, and you can make deals,
you can smoke crack, have a computer full of crap, and nothing happens.
Nothing happens, and you can blame it on the other person, and then people believe you.
Which is.
You know, like I read an article that said this is the biggest gaslighting in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
You know, where you're made to believe that you're crazy because this happened, this didn't happen.
Explain what gaslighting is, because that's what's happening a lot, and I don't think most people know what gaslighting actually is.
So, gaslighting is a term that used to be used it's still kind of used, but for people with certain types of personality disorders, and you know, I won't get into the whole thing like narcissistic personality and antisocial or borderline personality. Sometimes people that have lived really hellacious, incredibly abusive lives, you know, their brains form differently and they just become different. And part of that is, you know, becoming manipulative and what have you. And then what happens is that it's a very slow, malicious, crawl to getting you to think that there's something wrong when there's nothing wrong, getting you to think like, if you said, if you said something and I said, I don't know, if you said, hey, did I do this yesterday? And I'd say, nope, no, you didn't. No, I was there. You're like, wait, I thought I did. And then 2 months later going, yeah, you didn't do that, but like always just keeping you off guard. Telling you
like trickery. It's almost trickery in a lot of ways.
It's trickery. It's almost like telling you lies, knowing that they're lies, but then making you think that you're crazy because you don't believe the lies and getting you so off kilter that you don't believe in yourself anymore.
Right.
You don't know what to believe because you're so off kilter because the person is a master manipulator and they can get into your mind and they can twist things in such a Machiavellian way that you don't know what's coming or going anymore.
Right.
And that actually can be done on a grand scale when, it's kind of like, everyone look at door number 1 when, behind door number 3, they put door number 2 on door number 3 and door number 2 on door number 1. And then they make you think that you're crazy,
right?
Because these things are wrong, but they're telling you that they're not wrong. And then when you finally say, oh my God, you're right, they go, what's wrong with you?
So what is the disorder, if there is one, for the people who go right along with that, who these gaslighters can always manipulate these people? Because I know there's narcissists and inverted narcissists, but that's what's happening to half the country. They are being hoodwinked into believing that all this stuff is being done by the president when it's actually being done by the left, and they're trying to make people sound like they're crazy.
Right.
And half the country believes it.
But,
what is that?
Here's the facts. The people that are saying all this stuff are people that have been in office for, combined for 200 years, right?
Right.
So, Biden and Pelosi and all these people have been in office for decades, right? Trump's been there for 4 years. So how the heck could Trump have done all these things? He can't. It's impossible. It's impossible. It just can't happen, right? And I'm not for or against Trump. I think he did a lot of good things. I think he's kind of, maybe he could be a little more presidential and a little less like a TV host, and I've got my opinions about him.
He's more like a team guy than any non-team guy I've ever met in my life.
Right. He says what he says. He does what he does. He doesn't really give a crap. And, he says some stupid shit sometimes and he tweets some stupid shit sometimes and stuff that he really shouldn't do or shouldn't say. But then he is a businessman. He's a billionaire. He's been broken, not broken.
But everything that he says and does is forward of what the other opponent's doing.
So he does his job, and when sometimes I sit back and go, wait a minute, am I crazy? Because like all my friends are like, no, Trump this, Trump that, Trump this, and then I go look into it. I read the policies, I read the outcomes, I look at the statistics. I'm like, no, what do you mean? Trump has done more for the minority communities in this country than any president ever.
Right.
Since Lincoln.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation. What was that about? That was about controlling the South, not about freeing blacks. Right.
Right.
So like people that read history know that that's the spin that they put on it at that point in time. Right. And that was a great thing. And he wanted to do that, but he got his agenda at the same time.
Right.
It was about controlling and turning agrarian to commercial. They wanted the South. They wanted buildings. They wanted to go into the Industrial Revolution, and the South didn't. They wanted the land, and we can go on. But these are facts. You can read them, right? You can't change the facts, right?
Right.
But you can dilute them and erase them from history, which is what a lot of
then use an emotional
response, right, to get you to do what they want. Like, oh, this matters and that matters, and no, he did this, and look at all these people, and like, wait, what are you talking about?
Which slavery was horrible, should have been eradicated. It was eradicated, but there was all these other parts of that process of what was going on there that nobody talks about.
Nobody talks about.
Yeah.
So coming to the present time, right? So like, we're still the greatest country on the planet. So, I really encourage people who think that they have it so bad here and that it is so bad here to go somewhere. Go live in Venezuela.
Go to Honduras.
Go to Honduras.
And look at what's off this. I remember driving through Honduras and seeing people take showers on the edge of the road.
Right.
With nothing. They have nothing.
India.
Yeah.
I know a person who went to India because she wanted to go on a spiritual argosy, and she came back and ended up in a mental institution. Like, true story, because she could not comprehend the poverty and seeing people literally starving to death on the side of the road. Not one or two, hundreds.
Was that
Thousands.
who was telling me this story? I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but they were in Peru. Was that you?
No.
So, I think it was CAC. He was saying that they were in Peru. They got up that morning to go to, this is in the SEAL teams. They got up to go to work, and there was a dead guy on the street when they left. They came back 14 hours later after training the host nation, and that same dead guy was there, but he had no shoes on.
Right.
They didn't move the body, but they stole his shoes.
They took the shoes, right? Utilitarian, right?
That's how bad it is in other countries.
So, people don't understand that because of our way of doing business in the United States, right? Where's the poverty in the United States?
Right.
Right. Okay. So yeah, there are people that, living poverty, a living wage, living this, but like show me where, not by choice, that there are tens of thousands of people living on heaps of trash and drinking their own urine and crapping on the side of the street. Let's get real.
Except in there's areas where it is a learned helplessness, but even those people aren't living that bad. And those people in the United States are getting paid. Their housing's being paid. They're getting their health care is paid. Right. There's plenty of us out here who don't have insurance. And if something happens, we're in a bad place. Whereas, if you're poor enough in this country, your insurance, you're going to get, you're going to get,
right.
Is it Medicare?
Medicare, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, let's agree that, we can agree that there are a lot of things that can change, right? And there should be some restrictions on hospitals and pharmaceutical companies and, anything that has to do with the direct health and well-being of our citizens, right? Should maybe there should be a control. Maybe there should be concentric rings of where the government has control with, stuff that has to do with our health and well-being. My insurance sucks.
Right.
Right. And I'm a highly educated guy. I'm a motivated guy. I work my ass off every single day. And I have worked my fingers to the bone since I was 10 years old to get to where I am now. Right. And if I have something catastrophic, it could literally bankrupt me because my insurance sucks so bad.
Right.
But if I did, literally, like you said, did nothing and made less than, $11,000 a year, I would get a full boat ride. And I could get my knees taken care of, my hip taken care of,
right.
my shoulders taken care of. I can't afford to fix myself because my insurance is so bad.
Right.
So yeah, that needs to change. Am I pissed off? Yeah. I would love to be able to run again,
But how can you blame a guy who's been an officer 4 years for something that's been going on for 40?
You can't.
Yeah.
Because this was the.
But they gaslight and they make everybody believe that this is the case.
Right, and it's not the system that's wrong. You know what's wrong? The only flawed part of any system is the crooks at the top running it.
Yeah.
So,
and the people that are unwilling to participate to fix it.
And the people that are unwilling to participate, take the blinders off. Stop being sheep. Look around you. Make informed decisions based on facts, not these emotional decisions, not these Sally Fields crying over UNICEF baby responses, right? So, go look into that, where all that money went. Didn't go to that crying kid. Right. Went into someone's pocket for another jet and another house, just like the American Red Cross, just like all these other places.
CEO of Red Cross makes over $1 million to $3 million a year.
Right. So man, you shouldn't be making over $100,000 for that position.
Right. Yeah.
But hey, it's America, but there should be controls on that. I agree wholeheartedly. I work in healthcare. The healthcare system is broken. It sucks.
But socialism is not the key.
Socialism is not the answer, because you and I right now, for having this conversation, if we were in a communist or a social, we would be thrown in prison for the rest of our lives, if not just shot and killed right here.
Yeah.
For having this discussion, just for voicing our opinions.
Right.
The Constitution of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands on, right? That gives us this right to sit here and have our opinions, you know. And if we had some Democrats and some liberals in here, I will sit down here, I will share a beer with them, and I will talk about these things with them, and I will agree to disagree, right? And if you know, if they're a businessman and I'm a frogman, it doesn't mean I'm going to beat the shit out of them because they don't agree with me. I'll be like, okay, well, how can we come to, you know, where are some of the things that you say that I do agree with? I do agree with that. So maybe how do we incorporate both of them? How do we move forward with incorporating what's good and, you know, kind of downplaying what's bad? But the thing is that, like you said, back to the gaslighting, the people at the top that are making all these decisions are the problem with the system. It's not the system. We have the best system in the world.
Well, and the other thing that with the republic, what we see now, again, we have a republic. We have a great system as far as that goes. But now we see, which I don't think anybody envisioned, many dictators like Cuomo, you know, like the governor of Pennsylvania, or de Blasio, the mayor of New York City. We in Los Angeles and in California, we see many dictators that are responsible for a lot of death and manipulation of truth for and overtly just rubbing it in people's faces and gaslighting.
And gaslighting. Right?
Gaslighting, I think, is a very important thing that people need to realize. It happens a lot, and they're not they don't know it.
It's the master illusionist.
Yeah.
You know, it's creating an illusion that doesn't really exist, making you believe it, and then when you start talking about reality, making you think that you're crazy for not believing in the illusion. Mm-hmm. You know, what do you mean? That's wrong.
Right.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean that's wrong? What's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. You know, and it's that constant, right? And it's, you know, they write, like you said, they write books about this stuff.
Right.
You know, they write books about the playbook of how to nudge an entire country into complicit following.
And they do it. They write those books before they do it, and they still do it.
And they still do it. And they win Pulitzer Prizes, and they become cabinet members of, you know, whatever. And, you know,
speech writers. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. You know, somebody who's a speech writer, and all of a sudden they're an expert or a press secretary. You know, somebody Richard Grinnell. And again, it happens on the right and the left. Marie Harf, she's on the left. Richard Grinnell on the right. Trump's used him a lot. He was a press secretary for the ambassador to the UN. He has no experience other than that.
Right.
Marie Harf, spokesperson for the CIA. She wasn't a CIA operations officer. She was the spokesperson for the CIA. How does that qualify her for any opinion whatsoever?
Apparently it does.
I guess so.
Right. You know, so I once read something, you know, back in the late 90s. Right. And I remember I was like, wait, this doesn't make any sense to me. Right. They said, okay, so how do you become a leading expert on something? And literally the playbook was, you know, read 4 or 5 books on the subject, right? Do a little bit of research on the subject, write your own book on the subject. And then that is your calling card to start pitching to news media and organizations, because now you're an expert. You just basically make it up, call yourself an expert, and you are an expert.
Right.
And then this, you know, kind of went through and highlighted all the people in powerful positions that had done just that.
Right.
And then when I started looking into it, you know, a lot of the names on books at that time that said Dr. this and PhD this, they were lying. They didn't have doctorates. They didn't have PhDs. They got their diplomas from diploma mills. They just had them printed, and they put them on the wall, and they put them on the book.
Wow.
And
now it's a little bit more difficult to.
It's a little bit more difficult, but now they make these. They've already come with the times. They have these
backstops for.
They have these little backstops, and they have these distance learning non-accredited, accredited, sanctioned things, and you can take 10 classes and get a bachelor's degree, and 12 classes as a master's, and 14 classes as a doctorate, and it's like $3,200. So you pay them $3,200. You spend 6 months. You basically read a book and write a paper, and then and the books are like a self-help book from, like, I don't know, Sonia Choquette or Greg Braden or whatever, and Louise Hay, and then you just whatever, and then you have a PhD, and then you get to put it on your book, and then you're an expert, and you're making millions of dollars, and you're on TV. You're on Oprah, you're on Letterman, and so it's not hard to become an expert, but like if people start looking into these experts and who they are, right?
Which is why I started this podcast, was so we could get real experts and stuff.
Right. So, I wrote a book, but I also have a doctorate. I'm also a psychologist, right? And like, this is what I do. I'm a former SEAL, and I ran businesses, and I use the information in my book to get to where I am. So like, it's based on real stuff that really works.
Yeah.
I didn't make it up.
Yeah.
One of the funniest stories I ever thought was one of the biggest self-help gurus, that we have in America today. And I want to talk smack about him because I actually like him. But like, his story of how he started, like he was broke. He was on his last $2.
Which guy is this? Will you say? It's not like anybody's going to care on this part.
So anyway, Tony Robbins, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's who I thought you were talking about. Yeah.
I like Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good stuff. I think he's a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
Right. But he has a team of people, and he surrounds himself with smart people. So he's doing it right. He has a team of psychologists on his staff that inform.
But he's not a
stuff.
psychologist.
He's got a high school education, if
Right.
that, like, and I remember reading, Awaken the Sleeping Giant Within, right? In the first book that he wrote, I remember reading that and being like, oh, wow, what a guru. He's great. And then I read the story about like, he was just some broke dude, and he just like read a bunch of books and then just kind of like translated it into, oh, this is cool stuff. And he was a little hypomanic, and he wrote this book, and then boom, he was like the biggest self-help guru on the planet. But like,
with giganticism.
with like 6 months ago, he was broke on the side of the road. And maybe I'm sensationalizing a little bit, but go look into it. Don't take my here we go. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up yourself.
Yeah. Let me give you another example of that, and I have no problem saying this, is Gavin DeBecker. He wrote The Gift of Fear, right? Gavin DeBecker wrote The Gift of Fear, which is a book about case studies, right? Exactly what you're talking about. Go research case studies and then write your own book on those case studies, right? So you're basically repeating case studies and giving your own little spin. Basically, the book says, that when you're in a bad predicament, that your body and certain things about your behavior, or not your behavior, but certain internal things, your subconscious will tell you that you're in a dangerous situation, and so you need to know how to react. He doesn't tell you how to react to that. Just this case studies of people saying, I felt this and this happened, right? Okay, whatever. So he writes that book. He starts a security company where he basically was parking cars at celebrities' parties because he grew up in Beverly Hills. And then he started doing security at the parties. Then he opened his own security company, wrote this book, came up with some kind of process that goes with the book, which is all, again, stuff you go out and read and do. Never been in the military, never been in law enforcement. And so I've been looking at this for the longest time. He actually wrote or was quoted in an article for, I think it was the New York Times, was talking about how his philosophy on life is, if you've never done it, act like you have. And he was talking about the first time he ever got on a private jet. And he got on the private jet and he just acted like it was no big deal, like he's been on a private jet constantly. And then the other important people that were on there felt very comfortable with him. And then he just developed this relationship with these people. Instead of getting on going, wow, look at this, like we would be like, oh my gosh, he didn't do that. And so I'm talking to an FBI agent that used to be with the behavioral science unit, and one of these people that are on TV a lot, great guy. But I said something about Gavin DeBecker, and he was like, oh no, Gavin DeBecker's incredible. He's on the board of advisors for the behavioral science unit of the FBI. I'm like, what? What are you? I mean, so when I wrote my book with 20 years of experience in threat assessments and awareness and attack survival, and not just attack survival, but being an attacker, and people say, well, have you read Gavin DeBecker's book? it's shocking to me when I sit back and realize how these people are able to carry this off, and do this. Joel Osteen's another guy. When does Joel Osteen ever mention Christ, the Bible, or, he talks about God, but he never opens the Bible, not ever. So these people, and he was basically, it's the same thing. It's a business for that guy. He developed that whole thing as a business. So this stuff happens over and over, and these people are, and that's what a lot of these politicians are. They are master manipulators, master gaslighters, and they have developed this system that is, it's quite impressive. I'm not gonna lie, it's very impressive what they do, and the left is amazing at doing this on a grand scale. But let me ask you one more question, and then we got to cut this off because I'm afraid we're gonna get locked in here. With all this stuff that's happening, and people not doing research on issues, or they're listening to these people who have no experience in their opinion, because a lot of times these people on the news, they're given talking points, right? They're robots. They just repeat, what, or recorders, they repeat what they've been inputted with. But this cult-like mentality, it's not just on the left, it's on the right.
Absolutely. It's both sides. And
people will follow these mysterious groups of anonymous type of sources, which I never, if you're anonymous, I question anything that you have to say. I need proof. I need something that I can look at. But what is that? Because I think this is sweeping over not just the nation, but the world. What is that cult-like mentality? How do people guard themselves from that? Because you see it in gangs. You see it, people who grow up in the inner city, they believe they got to be a part of a gang. You see it in stockbrokers and the way that they believe that they have to follow this mindset. Look, to an extent, you see it in Frogman, you see it in everybody, but it's gotten to a point now where, as far as what's happening in this world and in this country, people just blindly, it's like watching The Walking Dead, where they would make noise and all that herd would start following, and that's all it takes. Just rattle this and they'll follow.
Right.
How do people police themselves from that?
It's hard, because although we are capable of doing, great things, and there are certain people like you and I and the SEAL Brotherhood who are kind of cut from that mold, where we don't really follow things, we kind of, right? But you got to understand that the group dynamics and the way the brain is made to be manipulated like that, because it's survival. Like, we have to be in a group to survive. So if you read social psychology, research on social psychology and anthropological psychology and evolutionary psychology,
Bless me.
Bless you. And evolutionary psychology, it's like, our ability to actually bond together and to adapt the group philosophy and move forward. Just, okay. Right. That is what gives us the ability to form groups and to become, and to be able to perpetuate. Right. So if we couldn't, so it's really hard to go against our whole, history of, our whole ancestry or history of the world of programming, right? We can't. It's pack mentality, right? You just follow. So, but in this day and age, we don't need that safety. We can be our own person, because there's plenty of people out there that are in that clique too. Free thinkers. You got to think for yourself, and you have to do the research, right? You can't just blindly follow, So, you can't just blindly follow. You have to read, you have to research. And if you don't know the answer, then
don't assume the other person does.
Don't assume the other person is speaking from a place of fact. Go, where'd you get that from? Question everything. I mean, they've been saying this for 2,500 years. Question everything. Question everything. Learn everything. And if you don't, shame on you. You're a sheep. Right? Shame on you. You're a sheep. If you're just going to watch TV and look at your Facebook feeds and just say, yes, Biden is this, or Trump is that, or Hunter is this, or Camilla is that, then, without doing your research, then shame on you, and you're a sheep and you deserve what you get. Right? So unfortunately, there's 310, 12 million people in this country. And if the majority of them are just followers and sheeps, then it's going to be, oh crap, because shame on them. They deserve what they got, but we got it too.
Right.
Right. We got it too, because the people that are uninformed, the people that don't endeavor to get out there and research and learn and inform themselves and be critical about these matters and vote in a way that preserves the integrity of the Constitution and the United States of America, really shame on them.
Right.
And if we do go to a socialist thing and our Constitution is stripped and changed, and all of a sudden, people show up at your houses because you said something rude on Facebook, they're not going to care who you voted for. You're going down.
Right.
Right. It's just look at the world, right? We look at the world and we see all these atrocities. And if our liberties and our rights are taken from us, right? If the Bill of Rights and the Constitution is watered down and stripped down, then we're fair game. We'll have no choice. We will be sheep.
Right.
And then what? And people say, oh, we can't wait, what's going to happen if we, revolution. Well, wake up, people. We're in it.
I keep saying, I can't say this enough.
We're in it because the last step of a revolution is when bullets fly. People don't seem to understand that. That is the absolute last step of a full-blown revolution. Mm-hmm. And it usually doesn't get to that point because the power changes, right? And stuff happens organically. And because people are just complacent and complicit, they just go about their business and, oh my God, my taxes just went up. Or, oh, geez, we got to sell the car. Or, oh, geez, milk prices are now $10 a gallon. Or, gas is this. Or, whatever. And they just complain and they just go and they just do it, and they listen to the rhetoric and the excuses that are put out on the news, and they believe it's true. And, none of it's true. And they don't want to research it. They don't want to look it up. But if we lose that liberty to be able to find the facts, then we're really screwed.
Yeah.
At least now we can find the facts because they're out there.
Yeah.
Because the Constitution protects our rights. No one's coming to our house to arrest us because we had this conversation based on our beliefs.
Right.
Right? So, does socialism work? Well, it probably does. But what's flawed is the people that will be in charge and the liberties that will be taken away. Does capitalism work? Does this democracy work that we have? Does the republic work?
Well,
yes.
Well, lots of things work on paper.
Lots of things work on paper, but the Constitution is the only document that put the checks and balances of power. Checks and balances of power. Mm-hmm. The reason that these other hypothetical, or I should say theoretical constructs of government have never worked because there's no balance of power. And usually the people that go into politics are people that want the power.
Right.
Right. So like I'm a really smart, driven guy. How come I didn't go into politics? I became a psychologist. I'm an ex-SEAL, right? So why am I not in politics? Because I don't hunger for that power, for that control. But if I get pissed off enough, I might do it out of obligation.
What's really crazy about that is that what they do, or the problems that they have to deal with, are not hard problems.
They're not.
They're solvable problems.
They throw stupid things in the way to derail us and reframe us to, and to redirect us to stuff that doesn't matter, so they can do all this other stuff that they know.
Because solving problems is not what they're doing. They're making money and gaining power.
They're making money, gaining power.
Yeah.
Right. And, and both sides are guilty of that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you don't have term limits. That's what happens when you allow people to stay in positions of power and make billions of dollars, off of those positions of power for multiple careers. Most people stay in careers for 15 or 20 years. Some of these government officials have been there for 20, 30, 40
years.
40, almost 50 years.
When, at the museum, Grant Mann just took over in the museum from Rick Kaiser. I mean, combined the amount of service they have is ridiculous. But Grant Mann, we're talking 34 years, I believe, in service as a SEAL. 34 years. If you were to go look at his career, it's pretty amazing the things that he's done. And that same 34 years, there are people who have been sitting in offices in government that have never done one single thing.
And they're multi-billionaires.
Multi-millionaires.
They've never been shot. They've never been blown up.
They never did anything. They never made a difference in anything.
Right.
It's phenomenal when you think about that. And
they should be held accountable for that.
I
And that's
believe-
why the system has to change. It's
yet somewhere along the way, if Rick had done insider trading, he'd be in jail.
absolutely.
They would not.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. Or if he had a sexual harassment case, he would have been fired. He would have been probably charged, and it would come out of his pocket. They had a slush fund in Congress of our money that they were able to hire attorneys to squash any sexual harassment case that ever happened.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. And meanwhile, still, they don't do anything.
And what does that teach generations of Americans growing up? That
They're the paupers, and those people are the kings.
right. Okay. So one, the negative aspects of the Marxonian ideals, they actually are them, right? But they're trying to say that it's someone else.
Right.
Oh, there you go, gaslighting, right? They're the ones in power. They're the ones that are doing it.
Right.
They're the ones making it all happen, right? So we become pawns in their games.
They're a Hegelian dialect.
and it's easy to fix.
Yeah.
Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote for term limits. Change the construct of government so it's like any other job.
Right.
They have to be held accountable. If they do something wrong, they lose their job, they lose their benefits, they go to frickin' jail, right? They get the same health care that I get,
Right.
right? And they don't get to travel around in fancy jets. They can get on the damn plane like everyone else, right?
Yeah.
It's simple as that. It's a job. I want to be a congressman. Great. Well, in your lifetime, you can have 12 years of being a congressman, and then you're done.
Done.
Okay? It's like term limits on president.
Yeah.
We need term limits on Congress and Senate, right?
Yep.
Term limits on, governors and commissioners. They all have to be reelected, and so people get reelected time after time. But, that's it. You're done. A president can only be a president twice.
And here's the last thing I'll say about all this is that when it comes to term limits, we could even do term limits, but the problem is that there's no checks and balances anymore. You have House of Representatives, you have the Senate, that's Congress, you have the Supreme Court, and you have the president. All of them, if the Democrat Party votes a certain way, the Congress, the Senate, the president, if they're a Democrat, they're all going to vote that way. And if the same thing with the Republicans. So we don't have checks and balances. It's just Democrat or Republican.
Right.
And that's a major issue because there is no guard against. Remember that old saying: if you give someone power, how does it say about absolute power? How does that go? Something about if you give somebody power, I got to look it up.
You got to look it up now. Something like absolute power corrupts absolutely.
That's it. Okay, there you go. If you give somebody power, they will be corrupted. If you give them absolute power, they'll be corrupted absolutely. I think that's how it goes. Maybe I'll change that. Maybe I'll edit that out so I sound smarter. But that's the thing. We've given these parties absolute power.
Right.
And they are corrupted absolutely. Look at what's happening to Trump. Where's the GOP? And the Democrats are full bore across the board. It's not like the Congress and the Senate and the liberal judges in the Supreme Court, the justices, like they are thinking for themselves. They're not. They follow exactly along political lines.
Right. And our brother Dan Crenshaw, congressman from Texas, he said that. I was at a fundraiser with him last month, and that's one of the things he said. He goes, listen, there are a lot of great Democrats out there. There are a lot of great Republicans out there, but they're scared.
Right. Because the absolute power over them.
Because the power that ensues over them is absolute. And there's ramifications for that if you decide to go a different way. So they just stay quiet, and they don't want to. They can't buck the establishment. You can't. So only the populace can do that. Only we can do that. But we can only do that if we're united, if we're one,
and not in a cult like mindset,
and not in a cult like us against them mindset, which is part of the playbook, by the way.
Right.
Part of that socialist playbook, right? You split the country, and you make people the enemy of the people. Right? So that they're against each other. And then you invoke fear and panic and disarray. And then you swoop in with all the answers. Right. And then boom. And then once you're in, and you can do whatever you want, because then it's too late. So like as the saying always goes, right? You can always vote yourself. Right. What was it? Which one of the founding fathers, when they came, I think it was Franklin, they said, "Hey, what do we got?" And he says, "Well, you got a republic if you can keep it." And so we voted that in, right? We can vote ourselves out of it, but guess what? We'd have to fight ourselves back in.
Yeah.
Because once those checks and balances are gone,
no powerful person is going to give them back.
It never coming back.
Yeah.
It's never coming back without war.
I agree.
So I want everyone to think about that. And I'm sure this is what you've been saying for years.
Yeah.
Right? Once we vote it out, which is very easy to do, we just vote for some people and they will take care of it for us. Right? And when it's gone, it's gone. And we will not get it back. They will not give it back. We will never have the Constitution or the Bill of Rights ever again. And look around the world. I don't want to live like anyone else in this world. I've been around the world.
And this has happened again and again. Look at Israel. Israel eventually broke into two countries. It just happened. You look at Europe and you go through the history. There's a video where you can see how all the countries have changed through the past 2,000 years. It's shocking.
It's shocking.
But they never had anything like this. Why? I can't understand why you would try to break this. Except for Satan. That's the only. I'm going to leave it there, though. We'll talk about that on another show. Hey, listen, God bless you, brother. Again, real quick, let's give everybody how they get in touch with, first, the Navy SEALs Fund. It's NavySeals.org.
Navy SEALs Fund.
NavySealsFund.org.
.org.
The Frogman Motorcycle Club.
Right. Frogman Motorcycle Club is online at, Frogman MC. You can just Google them and you'll find our website, frogmanmc.
.com.
I would say the .com or why do I always forget those things? It's like, it's the most important thing. It's like the last 3 digits of your phone number. And I can never remember if it was
let me look it up real quick.
.com or a .org or whatever. There's people listening that's going, dude, how can you be part of the club and not know? And you know what's the funny thing about it? It's like I'm kind of like in charge of making the website with a couple of buddies. So, sorry.
Let's see, here's the home, and that is frogmanmc.com.
See, God.
That's the problem. See,
thank you.
It's NavySealsFund.org and frogmanmc.com.
Right. But since we're a nonprofit, I always get tripped up.
Yeah.
Right. We are a nonprofit. We just chose to use the .com and not the .org.
And they can go to Amazon, and both your books are on Amazon.
Yep, they are. And if you want to really
spell your last name though, it's Dave
Ferruolo, Ferruolo.
Okay.
I've got them on my website. If you Googled my name, you'd find my website. If you want a really cool signed one, that's fine too. But
okay.
I'll have to go digging through the bowels of my basement to find those old moldy boxes. And hey, look, there's one.
Well, I got to get my website back up. That's a whole nother story. Hey, listen, God bless you, brother. Thank you for all you've done for this nation. Thank you for being the example for so many, people that are looking for their way in life. I mean, you're somebody who, I think like myself, you were a frogman, and then you continue to challenge yourself in different arenas and excel in those arenas. And I think you've set a huge standard for people who are looking for, I wouldn't say heroes. I don't like calling us heroes. I think we're men. Somebody who wants to be a man. Somebody who wants to grow up and be a real woman. They can look to people like yourself and say, this is a person who sets standards and achieves what they say they're going to do.
Right.
So, God bless you for all that, and keep pushing.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on this. This is a great experience. And,
Let's see if we can get out of here now.
Right. This might be our sarcophagus. Who knows?
Well, let's see. We'll have to.
We got plenty of hydration materials around the
That's
corner.
true. And that frog's been behind you the entire time, so it's directly behind you. It's just staring at. He's like I am. He can't hardly turn his neck. All right. Thank you, brother, for all that you've done for this nation. I cannot thank you enough for all that you've done. And what a great time it was here at the Navy SEAL Museum. But again, and I've got a long drive back to where I came from, which I'm not really going to mention that right here. But thanks, Dave. Thanks to all the frogmen. Thanks to the Navy SEAL Museum for having me down here. And looks like I'll be hitting the road again. And who knows where I'll be next. That's it for now. You know, one of the things that we've been discussing this week is the reality of veterans. We had Veterans Day this week. The reality of civilians and their role now on the front lines. What's actually happening with socialism, how we've been predicting it, and now it's upon us. And the fact that we're a republic and how important that is. But one thing out of all the things that we talked about that stands out, and it doesn't matter if you're a veteran or civilian, in official service or not, things like the creep of socialism/communism are allowed to happen when the people don't take part in sustaining freedom. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.